year. We had a couple of amazing speakers. I'm here with Sarah Knapp from OutdoorFest. She's been an amazing partner through this whole thing. Awesome. So just by way of background, Force of Nature is a movement that was started earlier this year to provide a platform for women to share their stories, to be able to have more of the limelight than we're used to seeing in the outdoor world. So we started this series in order to provide that platform to have local women who are leaders, who are passionate about what they're doing, have more of a voice, more of like a strong way to showcase their talents and their passions. So that's what this has been all about. We've had one per month since May. Force of Nature also has a wider impact. There was $500,000 given to 26 initiatives who are helping women and girls get more into the outdoors through the Force of Nature Fund with REI. There's also been a lot of work with brands and outdoor products to raise the quality of products for women and also extended size ranges. So there's been actually a lot of components to Force of Nature that we've been really proud of. And then none of this would be possible without our partnership with OutdoorFest. So I'm going to let Sarah tell you a little bit more about what they do.
Thanks, Kristen. Is this good sound? I also want to add that one of the grantees for the Force of Nature Big Picture, I don't know what the word is, initiative is Rocking the Boat, which is based here in New York City. So that was really cool for me to see when I was looking through the grantees that a super awesome local organization that I love, and I think if you guys all look it up, you're going to be stoked on it, is part of that as well within this kind of really large national campaign that REI is doing. About OutdoorFest, for anyone who is not familiar, we do a summer event that is 10 days long, and our goal is just to show off all of the amazing resources that exist in New York City for people who are outdoor enthusiasts. And so that could be anything from a great leader talking about their conservation efforts, or a mountain biking coach and their favorite playground in Queens. And so we do that over the summer, and then during the year we have something called Mappy Hour, which is kind of just a happy hour with an educational and social component. And so bring people together, have topics that we learn about, and then kind of discuss afterwards. And so we do that every month. I invite everyone to come join us. There for everyone, and we try to, whatever the topic is, keep it accessible for all levels. So don't be nervous about showing up. You will learn something, and you will meet someone cool throughout the night. So that is what we do. And then I also want to add, we've been doing this series all summer, and it would be great for everyone here, if you do have any feedback or ideas or anything you want to add that you are thinking about from this, to email one of us. My email is sarah@outdoorfest.com, so that's a pretty easy one, or just come talk to us at the end of the night, because it would be really great. We can talk together about how we think it went, but I want to hear from all of you guys about what your experience has been here. So that is all.
And now we're going to introduce our fabulous speakers for the evening. So I have the lovely privilege of introducing Katina, and Sarah's going to introduce Courtney. And they both provided bios that we are going to read to you. So just to make sure it is all correct. Yep. So Katina Grays is the leader of Outdoor Afro New York City, a national organization that celebrates and inspires Black connections to the outdoors. She's always loved the outdoors, but her relocation to New York City pushed her to explore new ways to get outside. And I think anyone who's a transplant to New York City, I see a lot of people nodding, we've all had that experience. Katina is an experienced hiker, an obstacle course racer enthusiast, and a reluctant runner. She also She's also drawn to the solitude and deep sense of connection that exists in nature. She is passionate in her belief that the outdoors belongs to everyone and strives to create opportunities to engage people from all walks of life in outdoor activities. Professionally, Katina is a recovering lawyer who now works in education reform. In her 20-plus year career, she has worked both domestically and internationally in the corporate, government, and nonprofit sectors, focusing on operations, strategic planning, and capacity building. She holds an MBA from the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan, a JD from Cornell, and a BA from Trinity College. However, the most important and best job she's ever had is being a mom to her 3-year-old daughter, Serafina, and still finding time to get outdoors.
Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. And I'm excited to introduce Courtney. Courtney also gets an extra shout out for being MapYard 2017 speaker, so you know, woohoo! Okay, so Courtney Williams is the chief strategist of Brown Bike Girl Bicycle Advocacy Consulting. She's often found herself as the only woman or person of color present to speak on behalf of all people of color's needs in the mainstream bike leadership space. She names her company in acknowledgement that sometimes it feels like she's the one and only Brown Bike Girl. Fortunately, the aim of the Brown Bike Girl is not to be alone for long. Through a wide-ranging body of work, the Brown Bike Girl's ultimate aim is to produce more leaders of color in the bicycling community. Courtney brings numerous personal and credentialed qualifications to this space, including degrees in public management, urban planning, over 5 years of business development consulting, and a recently earned National League of American Bicyclists National Instructor Certification. She has avidly biked New York City streets with cyclists from many scenes since arriving in the Big Apple 8 years ago. Courtney began her advocacy journey as the Five Boroughs organizer for a Black women's cycling movement, where she coordinated, produced, advertised, and led an average 2 rides per month year-round, connecting over 900 women of color to cycling opportunities. She launched the Brown Bike Girl as a more equitable platform for her service with a far-reaching mission to help increase cycling adoption and access in communities of color. So give it up for Courtney. And now we will hand it off to our 2 featured speakers. All right. I'll hold the mic close to
I'm not strong enough today. Okay. We're a little waiting. All right, so we're gonna get started. I think just to kind of set the stage so you guys understand why are Courtney and Katina asking each other questions. We actually have never met in person until tonight. But we were excited about this idea of hiking and biking as a catalyst and as a means of social action and justice work. And so what you will see is us really trying to get to know each other's work and what we do. And then we'll also leave some time at the end for questions for you to ask us.
Oh, I had to pick up. Katina came prepared with paper. I have my cell phone. And I would just like to say, if this goes well.
Low tech, high tech. Old school.
No time tool. This is my I would just like to say, if this goes well, we can name our show Courtney and Katina Ask Each Other Questions.
I like it.
That'd be the recurring. There you go. See, high tech. Okay. It is nice to meet you. And I like your jacket. Question I did not put on the paper, just a curveball, like, since you're about to full of points. So check it. Like, I think, and I want to know the significance to you of being a woman in this work, right? Especially a Black woman. Because I can tell you what I think. I think it's cool. For me, it ends up being more about getting Black and brown people doing stuff and not so significant like, oh, I'm a woman doing this stuff. I think in our community, women lead it anyway. So that's just how I feel about it. But I know that like, there's a huge women's push in like advertising and sports and these initiatives, and I was like super excited to hear what was going on with the bigger thing. Like, what does that feel like for you?
I think for me, the way I show up is always 100% who I am, right? So like, it is in a body that is gendered woman and as a person who is brown. And so when I show up in an outdoor space in this work, what it means to me is that I am actually helping to expand the conversation. So it's not that I think everything needs to be catered to, or sometimes I think you can feel like things are being pandered in a certain way around gender or race or whatever the affinity group is. But I think that for me, it's being a part of the larger conversation means that I get to ask provocative questions that may not have happened if I wasn't in the space. I get to push people's thinking, right? And not in a way that's like antagonistic, but in a way that sometimes when you own the only people that are in the room are the people who are like talking to people just like them in every way, right? It's different when it's a conversation of all men who are white, and then you have a woman in that room asking a different kind of question. It's different if you are in a room of all white people who are both genders, and then you have a person of color in that room asking a different part, adding a different part to the conversation. So I see my role as a woman and as a person of color in this work is really about expansion and creating new pathways and new thought processes for the work.
I guess I share that sentiment, really. I've never really thought about when I've come into a room, and not in a naive way, just like, I am not going to allow whatever circumstance to be defined by the fact that I'm a woman or I'm a woman of color. Like, I'm aware that people are going to look at me through filters and say, and possibly have presumptions about my attitude and what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. And sometimes I do say it that way, and I do say those things, and that's fine, but it's ultimately an expression of me. I don't know, I just always think of it, it always interests me about how many people are impacted or come into the room nervous, or I guess burdened in a way, by the fact that they are female or female identified, or that they're a person of color. And I just want to say to that, like, shake it off. Like, when Miley Cyrus not that Miley Cyrus is at all anybody's spirit animal, but like when they say, you know, I came in like a wrecking ball, and most recently Cardi B, who I must show, I don't like her, but I understand where she's coming from with that song. That's the #1 song. A lot of people have haters and need to tell them that they can't agree with them. That's what I feel like when I walk into a situation like, you don't know me, I don't know you. Yeah, we all have like our lenses that we're gonna, but you're gonna respect me for what I'm about to say and what I'm about to do right now, and the outfit that you're about to get. Because I'm always committed to excellence. Like, I went to like gifted talent school and like drove it into our brains, but like excellence all day. So that's just, I feel like that's universal. What's your question for me?
So I'm going to go way softball questions because I want to start with getting to know more about who you are, how you got here, and what you're doing now. So if you could tell me sort of where you're from, what your earliest experiences were in the outdoors, and how you got into the world of biking. So take us back to the beginning.
I felt like being really silly and going, I was born by the river. No, I was totally born in Dallas. Like, there's no river. Earliest experiences. So, I'm from Gary, Indiana, which is a still city, one of the Rust Belt cities, outside of Chicago, 60 miles. It is an urban area. It is 89% brown people, and which is fabulous. I love the fact that I come from a chocolate city, as they are called, and one of the, I guess, underutilized, okay, let's put it in this context. It's a brown city, which means it got that way because all the white people left and all the investment stopped, and it's a divested city, right? So there's kind of like, there's a spirit of decreasing the amount of businesses, decreasing educational funding, all this kind of stuff decreases. But I've always looked at my home as an asset. It truly is, just because of its position, right? It's next to Chicago. There's a train that goes right into Chicago. It is on the very bottom of Lake Michigan. We have a beautiful, beautiful lakefront. pay millions of dollars to be on the lakefront. A park system that is fabulous. Like there's one park like every 3 square miles. Like there's a billion little parks. And I was fortunate to grow up with a grandmother who, as I get older, I realize how much of myself I inherited from her. She was always into nature. So I can remember being a little kid and she and I would go to the beach and feed the seagulls. Like when we lived far away from the beach, we would go to the beach and feed the seagulls. And there's a gigantic dune outside my house. And I remember being particularly threatened by my mother that if I did not become more ladylike, I would go to finishing school, which I equated to having to wear pink and wear bows. And that was, I just didn't like the girls who were already down with that program. But I found a balance, right? So like climbing dunes, digging in the mud, doing the things. And part of the things were also bicycles. It wasn't significant to me at the time because everybody rode a bicycle. You're kids, you have a bicycle. And I even rode mine up until I was in high school or so. Then I went away to boarding school and stuff like that, so I forgot. Like education took over my life for like a good 8-year stretch. But when I moved to Brooklyn, then I moved into my apartment and there was a bike lane in front, and I just, I'm in the big city and I'm seeing all of these. I didn't know they were evil hipsters at the first time, but I saw these hipsters and these chic people on their bikes, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm about that life. I'm a part of that. I forgot that I love this, and then I got back on bicycle. And then eventually I wanted to go further than just around Prospect Park. I wanted to go far by myself. So that's when I started looking for people, and that led me to organizing so that I could find other Black girls to hang out with me. And it landed me here eventually. Yeah. How about you? Like, where do you come from, and why are you a Black person that's not afraid of nature?
Where do I come from? I'll kind of do this in reverse order. So I moved to New York from Nashville, Tennessee. I am not from Nashville, but spent most of my adult life either in the American South or living abroad. I lived in Thailand for a good while, and a lot of my how I spent my time was just outside. Like I could leave my old job in Tennessee and get in my car, leaving work because I keep hiking boots in my trunk, and I just I'm gonna go hike on my way home, and it was just so easy. I didn't realize it was a part of just life. So I was a person who I think started to like the outdoors but didn't recognize it as a passion. It was just something that I did as a part of my life. And so I moved to New York about 3.5 years ago. When I did, I don't have a car, so ain't no trunk. Getting to a trailhead is not just I'm gonna drive 10 minutes down the street. It's I have to take a Metro North train to where? And what's the Metro North? So for me, I immediately started missing the experiences that were just a part of my life, and hadn't realized the life impact that had on me, just in terms of stress relief. Put it closer. Thank you. Sure. Just thinking about sort of the impact that those experiences have on the way that I like to live, in terms of having time to think, having time to just be in community with people. It had never been a part of my life to hike with Black people. I think that I saw Black people on the trail, and there's this thing that happens when you see the lone other Black people. You smile, you nod, you do I'm so happy to see you here. It's all silent telepathic talk that doesn't happen out loud, right? But so there are those experiences, but it wasn't necessarily something that I felt was missing in my life until I got to New York City, and everything changed. I moved to New York with my daughter at the time, who turns 3 today. Thank you. She was 1 month old, so I was a new mama at the age of 41 in New York City, with no place to go outside. It was November. I don't do winter stuff. I was just my life is crumbling. My life is falling all around me. And so I sort of have been following Outdoor Afro via social media for a couple years, actually, because I had read about Rumap, and who's the founder of Outdoor Afro nationally. I thought she was super dope, and had started to follow them on social media just because they were my tribe, if you will, my sort of distant tribe of people who like to be outside, who looked like me. And so then when I was here and kind of having this like new chapter of life, and sort of wanting to reconnect with myself and who I wanted to be in this place and this time in my life, I really was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do something different. Anybody who knows me is that I'm not a sit still, kind of like and let life happen person. If something's not working, do something different. And so my doing something different was, I'm gonna figure out how people in New York City get outside, just in the same way I had to figure out how people in New York City grocery shop, because like that was foreign to me as well. So there were a lot of like New York City learnings, and one of the things I had to do here was like, how do I get outside? And you know what, let me connect to the folks at Outdoor Afro, and it just happened that when I was looking to do that was the same time that they had their Outdoor Afro Leader application open. And I was like, you know what, I used to work in the nonprofit sector, so I've led a lot of groups on like international mission trips and things like that for Habitat for Humanity. I was like, I know how to lead groups, I know how to be outside, let me go talk to the people. And that's kind of how I came to be doing the work that I'm doing right now. And it does feel like divinely ordered, if you will. Like I'm not a super religious person, but I do think that like the universe creates pathways, and this was one of those things that the universe just lined up. Because if anybody had told me that like at that age I'd be here with 1 month old looking to be outside, I'd be like, what are you talking about? But it is probably, you know, I don't always say I don't have a lot of free time, but it's the best thing that I do in my free time is getting communities of people to have new experiences in the outdoors.
Okay. I didn't apply. But it's interesting to know that that's a thing. Like that speaks to organization, right? I guess I kind of approached it, like I said, a little bit selfishly. Like my mom raised me, and she informed me that I was black and a woman, and that meant when I'm out in the big wide open spaces, people are looking at me, and sometimes those intentions when they look aren't positive. So that means when you go far, when you go alone, you actually aren't allowed to go alone. So when I got tired of just going around the neighborhood and going around Prospect Park, I'm like, I heard there's this thing called the Putnam Trail. I'm like, I heard of upstate. What does that mean? There are trees? Oh shit, I'm sorry, that's the woods. Like, can't go in the woods by yourself. Not in Indiana, you ain't going in the woods by yourself, no. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start finding groups. And so the first group that I encountered was We Bike, which is Women Empowered in Biking. My friends are here. And ultimately I kind of just started sucking up the awesomeness from lots of other people, right? Like I always tell people to go on group rides in particular if they're trying to learn to do stuff, because I can almost remember everything I've learned from every person on a group ride. Like, this is how to put your feet, this is how to brake, this is how to do whatever, right? So We Bike was the first group, and then I think I branched out and I heard that there was this group called Social Cycling, and so I started riding with them, and from them I learned how to like block traffic and be an informal, like kind of renegade marshal in the streets and all these kind of things. But as I was finding these different groups and trying them out, I wasn't quite finding the group of people who I felt like I could have conversations with about the essence of being a black woman me, right? So I think I was really trying to find friends when I first moved here. I joined the meetup. It was an Outdoor Afro. I joined the meetup, and it was the culturally savvy people, right? And it was a chance for me to connect with other people of color and us celebrate our culture. We would go to like black artist openings. We would go out to eat, but at like foods that we grew up with and things like that. So when I'm on a bicycle and I'm making recreation, because I've had jobs I've always hated, I want to be able to relax. I want to be able to talk about my issues, my personal issues, my cultural issues, and then not necessarily be not going to a group knowing that you're not going to encounter somebody who's never thought from your perspective before. I'm not saying that everybody who's not like you is going to fail to see your perspective, but it kind of messes up the rhythm of the fun when you have to be like, well, this is the history of black people in America, right? Like, I was just trying to ride a bike and feel free and feel like I'm flying and all of that kind of stuff. So I just got into a group online and I just started talking. And I was like, the group didn't have any traction, no movement was happening. I'm like, if I just start talking, other people will eventually be like, she likes this a lot, I want to hang out with her, and we can ride bikes together. And that's what happened. I totally didn't intend to become an organizer of a group of women who went from 100 to 1,000 of them. It just so happened because I like order. I like to know that when I'm in this Facebook group, like, we're going to have this every month and this is when you can predict it. And these are the rules for the forum so people don't go crazy and start fighting and all those things. Like, I like structure, so I just kind of naturally happened. So I think it's cool that you walk into something like with the intention, like, I am going to lead other people, and I was just, I guess I kind of just bogarted my way into being a leader. So that's cool. What else?
So tell us about Brown Bike Girl and how you bring social justice and advocacy into the work that you do with your organization.
All right. So I've been working on my elevator pitch, which I like to practice. So if I mess it up, like, just be like, yeah, that was a good job. So the Brown Bike Girl is a bike advocacy firm, and the intention is to expand the capacity of businesses, nonprofits, individuals, whomever wants to help a neighborhood of color or a community of color to get on bicycles, period. And the reason that I moved in that direction was because, one, my friends are like, you're crazy, you're giving away all this event planning for free, like, you need to stop and make money. And I was like, no, it's for the culture, it's for the community. Like, you need to go make some money. Haven't made the money yet, just want to let y'all know. It's in process. And the way that it's intended to affect social justice, right, is because I sound like a hippie every time I say this, but when you think about it, from my perspective, I think a bicycle is a perfect machine. It's perfect in the fact that all the things that come from it when you do it are positive, right? So it increases your health, it clears your mind, it puts you back in contact with nature. It can be purposely, if you consciously are using it. It can be alternative transportation that saves you money. It is consciously or intentionally, you can save the environment. Like, there's nothing bad that comes from riding a bicycle. Yes, you can get into a conflict with a car or something, but that's not the bicycle's operation itself, right? That's not an externality of doing the bicycle. So when I look at my background and my group of people, my black and brown people, we are traditionally most affected in negative ways economically, health-wise, transportation-wise. We live at the fringes of a city. We get pushed to the edges, right, where the transportation is less reliable. Happy. For us? For me? So I realized that, yeah, well, I until like the last month when I just jumped all the way in this thing, like, for me, bicycling was recreation, and for me it served the purpose of like giving me some mental health. Like, it was relieving my mind, giving me a chance to work my body because I worked 16 miles away from my job. So when I did commute, that's 32 miles in a day. Like, you're getting it in. But when I thought of folks who weren't as fortunate as me, class-wise, right? Like the folks who I'm working with right now in East New York and Brownsville, if they're on a bike, they might be, more than likely, they're using the bike because they need to use the bike. They're using it for transport. They're using it because they want to save money. Or, conversely, when we think about prison industrial complex, black and brown people get stopped more. They get charged with felonies more. That means they have less driver's licenses and they can't use, private transportation, which you really need when you're further out there. So all these things can be resolved by spreading the message of bike, and helping people connect with whatever it is. Sometimes it's going to be education about how to ride in the street and commute, like for those who are already out there doing it, informing them of the laws so that there's less reason for them to be stopped on a bicycle, like that you need 2 lights and a bell to be legal. Just so many things, like even the fact that environmentally neighborhoods of color are impacted more so by Superfund sites and pollution and high asthma rates, and even if you're on a bicycle in an asthma-prone community, the benefits of cycling outweigh the asthma. So I just want to fix whatever can be fixed with the medium that I have, and the medium that I obviously found myself, like every time I'm like, do I love cycling? Is that why it just comes out of me all the time? I guess so I just want to share the joy that I have and the insight that I have about what it can do for everyone, and particularly with a focus on Black and Brown communities because they are most in need, and technically they are my cousins. So yeah.
So in terms of Outdoor Afro, I mean, one of the reasons Outdoor Afro was created is that by its design, it is designed to be more than just like an affinity group of people who like to hike, right? Like there are lots of those kinds of groups that exist for people. The idea was not just around like this idea of community, but also that we can be a part of the larger conversation that happens in outdoor spaces. So, we've done position statements on public lands and these kinds of things, which are super important to us. Is also the way in which we engage people. So for example, what you just spoke about in terms of making things like economically equitable is really important to me, because for a lot of affinity groups, right, like there's a financial investment that you have to make in order to participate in that particular sport or thing. One of the things that's super important to me is that unless the outfitter or whomever has a cost, we don't charge anything for anything. It is free because I want everybody who can come, who needs to be in community with Black people that day, to come, right? And I've had people on hikes and events, somebody pull me aside and say they were living in a shelter, right? But they were in a library looking for jobs and they saw that and they wanted to be there and they wanted to be with us. So like this idea of like everybody is welcome and economic access is not a barrier is super important. The other thing, especially post-Ferguson, that Outdoor Afro has been really intentional about is about creating healing spaces. So when we have these things that happen, like Charlottesville, like Ferguson, like, right? Because the list is endless. We create very intentional events around that of like, we're going to have a healing hike. And in those spaces, we give time for people to share how they're feeling, positively, negatively, angry, tears, whatever needs to be there, to create kind of an intentional way for people to use the outdoors and nature as a healing tool. And so it's being in very intentional and honest communication about what's happening to Black people in America right now. So that's a part of what we do in the social justice and action space. And for me, and I think for a lot of Outdoor Afro leaders, what we also try and do is use this time and space that we have with each other to connect to ancestors and to connect to history, right? So right now, ironically, I'm reading a book about Major Taylor, who's one of the earliest Black bikers, because I'm about to do a biking event, right? At a different event, I had just come back from Nantucket, of all places, right? And while I was there, I learned this amazing history of this dude, Absalom Boston, who was one of the first Black whaling captains, and the dude was rich, right? And his family had one of the earliest school desegregation cases. In the 1840s, they were desegregating schools in Nantucket. I've never heard that history in my life. And so for me, it's also like drawing this connection of like, it's not just about what's happening right now, it's also about where we've been and how we've always been a part of the outdoors and how we experience the outdoors. And so it's not just like, let's get together and hike because it's fun. It's actually, we are such a large part of this ecosystem. We are deeply and divinely connected in so many ways, both historically and in present day. And so I want people to really like get that and dig that and feel that and like take it home and tell friends and tell their mom and tell their kids about it. Because creating like a completion of that circle is really a large part of the work that I seek to do in this work.
Can you talk more about trying to get more leaders, right? Because it's not my advertised purpose, right? But that's at the end of the day, like I know I'm not the only black girl on the bike. I met some, I've made some, like but I personally want people to be able to speak up for their own communities with the knowledge that they have, right? Like you just said, there's knowledge that's out there that's unknown. And for me as an advocate, I know a lot of top level stuff. I know my passion and I know what can work for people, which is why I'm willing to train people and I always have been. But I can't speak as deeply and as purposefully to the issues of Brownsville, New York, Brooklyn, the way somebody from there can. I don't know their streets. Like I'm coordinating a bike tour for them on this Saturday, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I need to really, really learn these streets. I'm just happy. Like I know that Sutter is above Pickett and vice versa. And I want to see more leaders so that they can speak for themselves. For you all, since you have like this whole application process and organization, like what is it like for you you're the sole leader right now for New York City. What is it like? Why do you need more leaders? And how are you going to get them? What's going on?
So a couple of things. I should also say there is Outdoor Afro New Jersey, and as of this week, we now have Outdoor Afro upstate New York. So I'm very excited that people are coming to this work. I think for me, one thing is I believe in a very broad definition of leadership, and I believe in sort of like being able to lead collaboratively. So I see myself as a catalyst for the experience, right? So I might be the person who is there with a t-shirt on that says, we're here for a certain activity, did you sign the waiver? But really, the leadership is not just about that, right? The leadership is also from the people within the group, right? So to your point, like there is like the formal Outdoor Afro leader, which by the way, the application is open if you want to talk about it after I'm here. So there's that formal kind of organized leadership, but I think one of the things that's important, and especially with communities of color, is leadership comes in all forms, right? And so, not too long ago, we partnered with the Schomburg and we did a Black Power exhibit, and we did a walking tour of Harlem. Well, a lot of the people that came to my event were some people who were born and raised in Harlem. I live in Harlem, but to your point, I don't know like the history of Harlem in that way. The things that these people were able to add to that experience, even beyond, the tour guide was somebody who was born and raised in Harlem and had very well studied in that. But the things that the people in the group who are from a certain place or who have different experiences, to me, they are a part of what leadership is. And so it's, because to your point, I do a lot of activities that are not things that I'm experts in. And so a lot of times I am in the place of leading and learning at the same time. And so for me, it's broadening the definition of leader. It's not just the person who's standing in the front. It's not just the person who has the clipboard with the waivers. Like, the idea of leadership is really, really disparate, and we have to be intentional about creating opportunity and space for people to contribute and to give and to help each other out in that experience.
I am totally, like, when I go to a new place, I'm going to be like, who's the person who has the waivers? Like, because that's really, like, at the end of the day, who has the power, who has the waivers? Like, who is legally in charge? You got the legal power. I put a question on there. I know you have bullet points for it. So. One of the things that I sometimes get pushback about trying to spread the joy of biking to people of color. And, everybody wants to have pushback, and I think for people of color, doing non-traditional Black people activities is really significant because there's such an importance in showing that you're part of the community, that you're not selling the community out, not that you want to transcend the community and think that you're better than other people in it. And that's a lot of reasons why people of color don't do non-traditional activities like bicycling and hiking in the woods or archery, because I totally saw y'all's meetup and I had a meeting that day and I really wanted to be there. So one day I will make it to Outdoor Afro. But one of the other things that people push back to me kind of on the academic level is, Courtney, you're telling people to go after something that they can't afford, right? A bicycle in and of itself, your bicycle costs X amount of dollars. it's going to cost somebody $200. It's going to cost them $300, $400, $500 just to participate in the sport. And even people who are in the sport with me will say, you know, once you get in it, like it just eats money. It eats money. There's tubes. There's, you know, and there's outfits and all that kind of stuff. And I personally don't think it has to be that complicated, but I do see where people are coming from. And I personally, I went bicycle camping for the first time in May, and my setup, like, I will make anything. Craigslist is the homie. Like, when I first bought I have 3 bikes, so that shows you, like, I'm very different than a lot of people right now. I've got 3 bikes. I've got a little cruiser that I wear dresses on, because that's why I bought that bike, so I wear dresses on it. I've got a touring bike, that's my sexy bike. It comes outside when I do performance stuff, and that's the one that I intentionally bought to ride to Canada on. I haven't done it yet. I went to Canada with that bike. But I've got the panniers to pack it with off of Craigslist. I borrowed a sleeping tent. I borrowed the pad. I borrowed literally everything I needed because I have a friend group that's active like that, but I recognize everybody else can't do it. And then I was just like, I'm in love with bike camping, and then I saw that a tent costs $400, and I was like, I can't afford this kind of love. So like, with hiking, like the little things, like, and they need to be very specific, right? Like, I can't get like a bootleg carabiner because I'll like fall off the mountain fast. What happens? How do you sell people on, you know, investing in recreations when money is a factor? And like you said, you have somebody who lived in a shelter, and I'm so glad they were able to open up to you, but like, how do you promote that despite the circumstances?
So this dovetails with my belief that the outdoors does belong to everybody, and I think if you make it about like who's got the best gear and the fanciest gear and this kind of thing, like half of us like couldn't afford it. Like I live in New York City and I have a small child. That's budgetary money gone, right? So I think a couple of things. What I can do is help educate people on what they need and what they don't need. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I've learned that X, Y, and Z boot is like, you know, a $200, $300 pair of hiking boots is like the best boot out there. Okay, but are you gonna hike every week? Or are you gonna go like 2 times a year? And are you know, as a person who, I was classic, right? Started hiking in sneakers. After a while, started taking on more aggressive hikes and being like, gosh, my feet and legs hurt. Wonder why, right? So then, you know, I started with a pair of like super entry level, like Merrell boots that I'm sure came from like DSW or TJ Maxx, right? Like, you know what I mean? And so I've been where the folks who are with me are, and I try and help educate them on where to spend money and where not to spend money. To me, like if you're hiking, the most important things that they really need to know about are like feet. So like good socks and like boots to accommodate what you need but don't blow your budget on those things. I talk to people about sales because I like a deal like everybody else. They all know about the REI garage sale. As times when you can shop now because you can get stuff cheap. The other thing that, like for hikers, the thing that I talk to people about is clothes, right? Mostly about base layers because I have a lot of people who show up in like jeans and cotton t-shirts. You can do it, but in the heat, you're gonna be real uncomfortable, right? So it's helping them to understand that, like, yeah, you don't actually need to start with like a $80 like tank top and like $100 pair of Prada pants to like make this work. Like you can be in like any kind of wick material shirt that you can get for like $8 or $9 at like TJ Maxx or whatever. Like you can work with that, right? And so it's helping them build without feeling like you're a chump if you don't have all the things, right? The other thing is like, especially as I've started to expand and like do more stuff, I was just sharing with Mick, I have acquired my very first backpack and my very first tent like that I own. The other challenge though is like, you live in New York City. Where are you going to put all these things? Like I'm impressed by the stash of 3 bikes. Like where do we go? And so that's the other thing, is to have people not get, so even if they have like, you're not talking about people who are like economically like on the lower end, but people who have jobs, like you really don't have to spend a lot of money to enjoy the outdoors in an easy way. The other thing that I've promoted with people is that like gear swaps and like shared gear and things like that. And the other thing I do want to mention is a lot of times, because I'm working with partners for events, a lot of times the partners will have all the things, so really all people need to do is show up. If I can give like a shameless plug to Appalachian Mountain Club for that, like that's one of the things that makes working with them great. And I will say this in Justin's presence, because he's actually never heard me say this, but one of the things I loved is like he just was like, tell us what you need, and it's like they just make it so. Like Justin just like says like help them figure that out. And that for me has been really great, right? So I took a group of people up to Harriman Outdoor Center. We were in a cabin, but a lot of the folks that came on my trip, many of them had not slept outside before, even though we were inside. So being able to tell them like, here's a list of exactly what to pack, and basically all they needed was like their clothes. And not even, like if you have a sleeping bag, bring one. If you don't, there is going to be a blanket on the bed, bring a sheet, right? And so being able to make things easy for people so that when they showed up, right, at Harriman Outdoor Center, right, I had already taken care of all the arrangements around food, so they didn't do any camp stove, any of these like things. Every kind of kayak and canoeing things, AMC lets us use all the stuff that's already there. So people can come, like I can create that for people so that they don't have to come out of their pocket with how will I pay for this, right? And so they can still come, have a really dope weekend, and have a ball outside in ways that they didn't even know were possible. And it literally was, they showed up with clothes from their house, toiletries, and maybe a sheet or a sleeping bag. That's it.
Yeah, I feel that, like, I like that, and I see where you're coming from, and even on the little bandanas, I think it says, like, everybody, it's a level playing field in a while. Bicycles, we aren't usually starting out in a while, but I try to emphasize the same things to people who want to get into stuff. There's a real challenge to fighting elitism, and in any sport, really. And I know that personally because one of the groups I chose not to join was because they were that kind of aggressive, I need to wear spandex all the time and probably weigh 70 pounds less. I'm like, that's not my life right now. It's going to happen overnight, those 70 pounds. But I hear you, like people do the classic, you look at them, you're like, oh, you brand new, I see all that cotton on you. It's a telltale sign of any sport. But it is really important to emphasize to people, like, this is your ride. This is your ride, and you're going to do it at your pace, and you're going to do it your way. And I think it's one of the most empowering things we can do is to help people, again, especially people of color, realize, like, it's really, I think maybe connecting with the outdoors and outdoor sports that aren't as formal is really about starting out or connecting with where you are on your actual personal journey, right? Because you have to learn to shake off the want, I don't know Buddhism very well, but I feel like Buddha said, like, the problem in life is that you want things, right? The want to be like somebody else, the want to fit into that spandex, the want to go XYZ so fast. Be like, stop wanting to be what the model you see is, and realize that you are your model, like, and you can be somebody else's model. Like, I didn't think I was gonna be people's role model. Like, I have fans, like, I feel freaking blessed. Like, people freaking trust me. Like, all this, not that I'm irresponsible. Like, people trust me, and people come from the Bronx at 7:30 at night last night to tell them, let me tell them, like, this is how you be safe, and this is my point of view. Like, that's crazy. So I think throughout this, like, I found my journey. Like, my journey is, like, I've always been on the journey of helping people and connecting them with resources. Like, if you look at a whole resume, Courtney wants to connect people with resources to help them excel in life. Like, that's really what, I was sincere when I wrote it, even if I didn't get that job. And it's just a beautiful thing. Like, we're on a journey. I just had an epiphany right here. Like, that's why I keep repeating it. Like, damn. yeah, I think it's good to connect people with the outdoors so that they can find themselves in the process and really learn what they need, what they don't need, who they don't need. Because it all becomes a big metaphor for life. Like there's I don't know what country the little proverb comes from, but it's like if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, that's when you find your people, you find your tribe. Like I wouldn't get this far in cycling, the sport, without all those people who I told me how to do it better, right? By myself, I could have been out there alone and struggling and not knowing how to eat and cramping and going like, I got 100 miles, just vanquished on my own. But, you know, like I've learned to appreciate just being with my friends and the people who tell me the little things along the way, you know, to be able to reciprocate is also super amazing. So I just want to throw those 2 cents in there. I don't know, you got a question for me? I go with you all day. Okay, I'm ready.
So you've talked a bit about starting Brown Bike Girl. What's your sort of vision for the future? Like, what are you working on right now to bear fruit in the future? And I ask that because a lot of times we don't put our big hopes and dreams out there, but if you don't put them out there, they don't actually happen. So what's your big thing? And you never know who in the room can help you with your big thing.
I know, right?
So,
okay. So, I'll start with the thing I'm presently working on. Y'all can hire me for more of that. So right now, like, I quit my job on August the 18th. I almost danced out the door, y'all. The week after that, I went on my first solo bike tour by myself to go clear my mind. And I rode from Lancaster, Pennsylvania back to Highlands, New Jersey. And I caught the ferry back to Wall Street because Newark is crazy to get through on a bike. And while I was out there, some folks called me, like things bearing fruit. Like I had been, I guess, making friends, not intentionally, with people in the Department of Health. Like, they were just cool people, they needed help, they wanted to talk to me, I wanted to talk to them, say hi. And they called me while I was on this tour, like, Courtney, there's a bike tour, and can you organize it in East New York and Brownsville? And I'm like, yes, I can. Don't know what I was about to do. Yes, I absolutely will. So the Bike East bike tour is one that I actually first met these exact same people on. And it's a tour, the 4th annual tour of Brownsville and East New York, which if you don't know are like the last ungentrified neighborhoods in Brooklyn, all the way, they touch Queens almost. And it's just a 20-mile tour to promote the culture and like rewrite the narrative that in case, like when I moved to New York, I knew that in East New York, cab drivers wear bulletproof vests. That's when I knew. They put it on the news. But anywhere you go, there's always the people who live there and the positivity and the pride that they have about, like you said, the old people who came on your tour, who came on your trip and were telling you about what was happening. I had that exact same experience last week. I did a ride. We did Brownsville history, and I found some stuff off of Wikipedia, and it's just like, let's learn some stuff. And people were telling me, I remember when they bussed us, like I had to walk through a picket line to get out of Brownsville to Canarsie, and the white kids would chase us if we didn't get out the neighborhood by XYZ time and beat us up, like stuff like that. So that's the neighborhood I'm working with now. I'm just so proud to be a part of it because it is for us, by us. There are people who grew up in East New York who want to spread cycling and movement and togetherness, and that is right on par with my mission to inspire communities of color to cycle, to be active, to be together, to be positive, to be self-motivated. Things that I want to see myself doing in the future is developing workshops. Like again, I'm all about people's capacity, right? So, or organization's capacity. I would love to be doing some workshops on diversity for like boards and organizations who have the intention to, serve communities of color, but there is no color in their boardroom. How do you know what the heck you are doing when there's no one in that boardroom where the thoughts and the priorities get set? And to call yourself and actually doing work. I would love to be able to do more of those. I I want to do more workshops that lead me into, like, deeper into communities of color, where I'm able to teach them how to use a bicycle for all those purposes I talked about. Like, we need to commute, y'all. And you need to commute for financial reasons. So let me, because I also have this random certification in budgeting and finance, especially with low income populations, let me show you how to actually see the difference in what you're saving, you know, by riding a bicycle versus, you know, that claim just like, oh, I'm just spending money on a bicycle. People do that same thing. Like, there's a resistance to positive change. Like, eat better. Vegetables cost too much money. Ride a bicycle. Bicycles cost too much money. Like, stop doing that. Like, let's make a program. Let's sit down and look at the trackable differences, and then what can you now use this money toward that you couldn't before? Like, maybe you're gonna ride a bicycle to save up for a car. You need a $500 beater, and that's what you want. Then I will help you be on a bicycle, save money. We'll talk about how many trips you didn't make on the MTA that kept you captive for 3 hours without a sandwich, and like get you there. Right? So that's the kind of stuff I want to do. Like, when I've learned that I can't just go into the world and say I will do anything, because that also sounds raunchy, but like, I will do any project that helps a community of color do better, that involves a bicycle. Like, it's kind of truly what I will. Like, if you've got an idea, if you got a nugget, like, the first person who ever hit me up through my website was a girl who wanted to do an LGBTQ owned and operated mechanic co-op. So that meant I had to do mad research. And one of the neighborhoods of color, she was coming to me asking me, how do I start a co-op? And I have business background, so I can do that. How do I advertise and be effective with outreach? I do that all day. And what's the best neighborhood? And how, you know, so all the strategic, like, let's dig deep. I love what I do now. Like, I tweeted the other day, I love that I can say that I love what I do. I just all love. Because creativity matters so much to me. Being able to, like, go down the rabbit hole and then come out with the rabbit, like, yes, that's what I'm about these days. And so that's it. Like, you got an idea, like, don't hesitate. Let's talk about it. Let's strategize. I'm going to help a business district in an already existing co-op in the springtime. They have two different objectives, right? So the business district is like, we need more businesses in this area. And the co-op is like, we are in a church basement and nobody knows we're here, but we're in the hood. And the kids from the neighborhood or people in the projects don't come to us. What do? I'm like, we're going to put you together. You should be partners. You know, I can find you a partner. I can find a sponsor. I can find the people who make sense. If you just talk to me about what your issue is, I'd be more than happy. Sometimes I'm giving the ideas away for free. I'm not promising that I will do that, but I will, like, you know, it's all love. It's not about having too much ownership over an issue. If you're too married to the idea that everyone must know that this is my idea, which is very much the New York way, things won't get done. You gotta be willing to just share the light, and if you love the work, invest in the work's growth. That's it. Let me go. Let's see what we got. Alright, so on the topic of business, have you ever been tempted to just go wholeheartedly into this leadership thing of Black people in the outdoors? And if so, or if not, like, why? Why? I know that for me, it's weird now because, or even before I quit my job, my recreation is my job, and that can get really strange. Like, I have no balance. What do? Just sit on the couch and sit real still for a second. My version of relaxing is to just do something less intensive with a bicycle. It's very strange. But for you, like, what's the perspective on that?
Sure, so I can answer that super easy. No, absolutely not. And for a couple of reasons. I mean, my love for the outdoors and the work that I do, for me, this is a part of what I do from a community giving perspective. It's important to me to be able to connect with people and bring the work. When it becomes, this is how I make my livelihood, then I have different agendas and different things that I'm bringing into the space, and I don't want to do that for my own reasons. The other thing is that I actually really like my current day job. And I no longer take jobs that I don't like, and when I start to not like them, I leave them and go find one that I do like. So I think I'm not dissatisfied in the things that like pay my bills, so I think that's part of it. The other thing is, the things that I do work on sort of outside of work, like consulting, those kinds of things, they're actually never related to outdoor stuff. I mean, I suppose that they could be, but it just hasn't happened yet. So I've not been very intentional or thoughtful about it, but I connect deeply with this idea of what you said of when it becomes your work, how is it different? And I think even as a leader, right, I always say that I am leading activities so often I don't always get to enjoy the activity. Like being able to just, like we did something recently with New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and it was the first time in a long time that I was just like, I think maybe I'll be mid-sweep, maybe I'll just take pictures of leaves. Like, it was so nice to like, I don't actually, like, other than like introing the group, like I didn't really have like leader responsibilities, and I didn't have to worry about the person lagging at the back. And so for me, I don't get necessarily enough of those like I'm just off on my own for the lark experiences already, that when you turn it into like this is what I'm doing is what you're really doing. And I kind of want to carve out that part of the outdoor space for myself that's self-care, and really wanting to be like really sort of indulgent about that as well. So, thank you.
First of all, let's give it up for Courtney and Katina. Yes. Everyone. I'm gonna stand over here. Yeah, so contact information up there. We have some Meetup, Facebook, and email. And then Courtney, we got email, and she is Brown Bike Girl on a lot of these social channels as well. So pretty easy to find her. So right now we want to open it up to questions. So yeah, I guess we'll start over on this side of the room and move around. So can you? Here, come up and use the microphone.
Sure,
So then everyone can hear what you're saying.
Hi, my name is Katina Grays. I have an organization called Adventures for the Soul in New Jersey. So my question is, what do you do when you meet resistance from people of color who are resistant to going to the woods to hike? And not resistance because of any financial issues, just I don't want to go in the woods.
So I do meet resistance. A lot of times my deal is trying to figure out what the resistance is about, and I have heard everything from I don't feel safe, right? Which is like, and you're like, well, what happened to you in the outdoors that made you feel safe? Nothing. It's kind of just like this idea that I feel unsafe. To me, it's fascinating that like people can feel totally safe in New York City, and like where there are people and like cops and things, like things that could be truly harmful, and you're like, there's nobody out here but like us and some birds kind of thing. So one is I start small, right? And so one of the things that I have been doing with more intention, last year I think I spent a lot of time like taking people out of the city for that kind of experience. One of the things I've been trying to do this year is curate New York City as an outdoor experience, and trying to do things like, even if it's stuff like we did a walk of like the High Bridge, which is the oldest standing bridge in New York City that nobody goes to because it's in the Bronx and Washington Heights. I had people show up like, I've never been this far uptown before. What? So part of it is like meeting people where they are and that thing, like just starting with like small and then kind of growing them out. I never in a million years thought I'd be like doing a backpacking experiment on my own. What was that about? But it's the same thing for me, right? I start small and kind of build. The other thing that I will say is, I'm not sure if you run into this kind of resistance. I have run into resistance about like, I don't want to sweat, my hair is going to be messed up. Like there's a lot of things, right? And so I think being able to think about those things, I always find like if you think about those things yourself, of like, wow, that really can be a barrier for somebody, even if it's like for you, you're like, I really don't care what my hair looks like. For somebody else, that's like a huge thing. I don't leave the house without makeup, right? So yeah, be like, put on lipstick and some earrings and come hike. Like whatever you have to do to give people their like little bit of glamour. I mean, I have had it happen. I mean, like I usually look kind of like rough, but I have had some like women like looking like picture perfect, right? That's how you roll, it's how you roll. So I just try and create whatever the pathway is to sort of get beyond what the resistance is about. By the way, I also we should chat because there's a group out in New Jersey that have you worked with Hikeolution at all? They hike in New Jersey. It's a group of, it's founded by women of color. She's come to a couple of my events. She's really lovely, so I'll connect you.
Did you want my input? Okay. Did you want my input? I mean, because I wasn't hiking, so. But no, a lot of that carries over, right? One thing, if just to help maybe frame the resistance, right? Have you ever read the book Black Faces, White Spaces? Okay, get that book. The book is, what's old girl's name? Actually, Nikki Finney. Carolyn Finn. Right, I've got a Google alert on that. So she gives a historical perspective of like all the reasons, like how people of color have been connected, African Americans specifically have been connected to nature over time. And sometimes it's like discussing the fact that we had to take care of it to be keepers of land and like the loss of that stuff, and then all these practical things that happen. The same things happen with cycling. I don't want to sweat. And like my small epiphany about the whole this is your personal journey thing. One, I never knew I could be so positive. Like I am just a glowing ball of light when I go out on my rides. I surprise myself, and you're just like, that's okay. Like I tell people, you know what, that's okay, and just respect where they are. Like that's not what you want to do, or this isn't how you want to do it. You know, I've always had those people who are persistently, I can't go the 6 miles. I've only gone 5, and like tragedy and drama. Like, all right, well I will catch you when you are ready, and just keep telling them, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. When you're ready, I will be there, and you can come with me, arms still open. But to the whole journey point, like I realize how much of this stuff you have to accept that you're willing to change about yourself. It's like, what's more important for me when I'm dying? That my perm was still intact, or that I had some great experiences and saw some things that I would never see again in life, right? When I took a survey once upon a time of my ladies in the group I used to lead, I was like, yeah, we all do have natural hair, because then it comes a point where it's like practicality versus living life. And you know, you make those transitions. That most of them have natural hair. Most of them are now willing to walk outside, you know, looking a little special with all the spandex on or all the workout gear, and not caring. Like stink lines be coming off of me all day sometimes, and I'm just like, you know what? But I did something I'm proud of and that I embrace, and that makes me feel great. So, you know, learn to love the people who love you the way you are when you're doing the things that you love.
Comment on your perspective on where things are kind of nationally. When I think of your groups, when we think of other groups nationally, I mean, where do you see things going maybe 5-10 years?
I feel like we are living in like the craziest time. Like in one way, like some of the things that are happening both like politically are like WTF, right? But then at the same time, what you're seeing is the aligning of some pretty interesting bedfellows, right? And for me, that's what makes this like a really special time to be working and doing work in the outdoor spaces, right? So you are seeing all kinds of group partnering around like national parks and like the alt park service. Whoever thought that there would be like a radical wing of the park service of all places, right? Like, so you're seeing some really curious things happen in the space that I think are bringing people together in some very interesting ways. The other thing that I think is, you know, for me, I am excited when I see broader representation in outdoor spaces, right? And that, when I say broader representation, yes, Black people, but also different size people, LGBTQIA people, like being a part of the lexicon, not in a like, look at this, isn't this like quirky and unique, but like, this is what is, because the more people see like that this is what is, then the more people will participate. I was chatting with Mick earlier. I don't know if you guys have seen the video of Myrna Valerio that REI did this week. She's a trail runner, brown woman, larger woman, and I love her, like love this woman. And I'm so excited that her story is out there. She and I have been Facebook friends for a while, we've never met each other. But I love it because, you know, the last obstacle course race I did was a Spartan race, and I did it with a girlfriend, and I was like, we are the oldest brown ladies out here. Like, because the people who do obstacle course racing are like young and fit and that kind of thing. But it's like, I know that people like Myrna exist, right? And so, yes, I think like my obstacle course racing days like are long gone. But like, for me, that kind of representation matters, and it creates access points. I promise you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a major corporation wouldn't have featured a body that looked like that, right? The world is changing in this space, and it's like slow and frustrating, and that is not to like paint some rose-colored glasses picture of like we're all gonna hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But the work is starting, and so I feel like if we are smart now, if we have intentional conversations now, if we have honest and robust conversations where I can, like, I always make this joke, like sometimes I show up at things and I'm like blackity black, 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 black. Like, if I can show up and be like all the way black and not have people like, oh God, I'm nervous, I know I'm having the right conversation. Because what that means is like 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 10 years from now, whoever is doing this work then, like, they won't be starting with like, oh, aren't you unique? You're a black person at Ike's. They are starting they're in a different starting place than where we are, right? And that for me is super important. I think about like people, I mean, and it's like, we're at the infancy of it, right? So we really have to be smart and do this right. I mean, but just to add more color, right? There are black people who've been participating in hiking and sports and things for years who are surprised at where we are right now, but also frustrated by where we are not. And I think that's important too, right? So my daughter, she's the blessing of a father who's been a skier his whole life, right? And so he's a large black man, and when he goes into any ski shop, and I mean, he has skied like in Japan, and like all the ski places. I don't understand why anybody does this really. But if he goes into a ski shop, I promise you, he will be approached as if he has never skied in his life. They will talk to him as if he wants entry-level gear. They will talk to him as if he has no expertise based solely on what he looks like walking in that door. When the world is actually different, they will be approaching him like they approach any other customer who came in the door. So that's what I mean when I say we're at the beginning of some really interesting, exciting stuff, but we also still have a lot to do for things to actually be really different.
For me, I must admit that I am literally just trying to take life a day at a time. Because every time I open my social media, I'm like, oh Lord, like, how is this reality? Like, will there be a tomorrow? Will there be a rocket? I don't know. But what I would like to see in the near future is these organizations. I would like to see more of the organizations for people of color conferencing and coming together and doing some mass events. And I would also like to see them, because they're still growing, right? They are kind of sort of infants right now. They're approaching teenage years. You know, I want them to hit like college where you get real active. I want to see them start getting political. I want them to use their platform and to solve some problems. I want them to see themselves as an agent of change, just not an exploratory or recreational thing right now. I have the intentions, like I think about it every day, but I'm myself right now. How bicycles solve problems in times of crisis. They go places that the cars can't go. They save people across mountains, right? How can I, as an individual, change that and zoom back out and say, how can I and the brown people on bicycles who I know start solving some problems just by riding bicycles? And that's what I want to see.
So I know we still have a couple of questions, but we're gonna put pause on this part of the conversation because we have a little bit of an extra special addition to the night. As you guys know, this is the finale of the speaker series, so we wanted to also bring up three of our previous speakers, Michonne, Anna Maria, and Katie, who is here. So come on up, and you already know Courtney and Katina pretty well, but we're gonna have these other three speakers quickly introduce themselves, and then we're gonna have a chance for everyone here to talk on a more intimate level, because we have these wonderful tables. So first things first, come up here, please. Come, yeah, Katie. So Katie, just introduce yourself, talk briefly about your work, and then pass the mic on, and then we'll split up into groups.
Oh, right. It's on a rope here. Hi, I'm Katie. Can you hear me okay? Great. So I am chair of a volunteer organization that is a grassroots side of the Sierra Club. It's called Sierra Club Inspiring Connections Outdoors, ICO for short. Basically, we focus on getting youth into the outdoors. We go out on a lot of day trips, but we also do everything up to like a 7 or 10 day backpacking or ice skating or ski trip, things like that. But we work with youth from 3rd grade up to 12th grade, lots of hiking. We focus on not super expensive trips because we are 100% volunteer run and 100% responsible for raising our own funds. So we do a lot of hiking, ice skating. We just brought 30 youth out canoeing in the Inwood Canoe Club this past weekend. A lot of just kind of day trip sort of things. And really we are focusing on trying to first just provide a positive experience in the outdoors, because a lot of these kids, some of them like live 10 blocks from Central Park and like they've not been in Central Park. So a lot of it is city adventures, showing them the different parks around the city. We've gone camping in Staten Island. We do trips in the Bronx, and but we also bring them out of the city about an hour, 2 hours outside of the city to show them how accessible it is, even by train or by, just by a quick drive, to show them how easy it is, so that we provide positive experiences, introduce them to the outdoors, sometimes get them into a river for the first time in their entire lives. But then we also have a leadership development program where we're teaching some of the older kids how to lead trips themselves. We train them in wilderness first aid, outdoor leadership training, and all the just basic skills that they need in order to be able to run trips. And then we have them running the trips of the younger kids too, because we really want to provide lifetime lovers of the outdoors that want to grow up, and when they go into college, when they graduate from college, when they move into adulthood, that they want to come back and actually lead trips in the outdoors and make advocacy a part of their lives too. So, and another side of it too, our biggest fundraising event for the year is the Adventure Film Festival. One thing that I'm sure a lot of you are very aware, if you've ever watched any outdoor adventure films, they're not super diverse. There's a lot, I mean 30-year-old white dudes are like really nice, but like they don't need to be in every outdoor adventure film. So a big part of the Adventure Film Festival, we're in our 5th year here in New York. It's based out of Boulder. It's a 14-year film festival at this point, I believe. It's our 5th year here in New York. It's going to be on December 5th. But a big part of our focus is trying to increase the kinds of voices that are represented in outdoor adventure films. So if you want any more information on that, let me know.
Hi, my name is Anna Maria. I run a women's cycling website called Pretty Damn Fast, and I also own and operate a bike shop in South Williamsburg called Sun and Air, and we're focused on commuters and city riding, and we have a really robust women's cycling advocacy program, and we bike camp and just ride around, get together on bikes a lot, and we're actually recruiting advocates for next year, so if you want to come ride with us, let me know.
Hi everyone. My name is Michonne Butler. Michonne. I work for the Appalachian Mountain Club, and I'm the outreach leadership coordinator for our trainings that we do. We allow people who work with youth to take our trainings and then learn how to camp, backpack, do canoeing, all kinds of these really amazing experiences that they normally wouldn't have because they're mostly, in our urban areas, and allow them to explore and go out into amazing spaces. So we have nature, and we also have a free gear borrowing system. So we can outfit like over 100 people with gear that we were talking about, you guys talked before about how expensive it is. So I do similar work to what these ladies do, but I'm also starting a blog, and I'm starting a blog mostly about traveling because I have road tripped around the country 6 times by myself. I've worked in 16 different states doing environmental education as a park ranger and also as an expedition guide. So I'm curious about like what people are interested in when it comes to road trips because I love them. And the program that I did with Force of Nature, that was one of like the first ones, was all about mentoring and mentoring young women and girls. And so, I just want to bring that back. I want to mentor some people on how to go on an awesome road trip. So, you can talk to me about that.
Awesome. We have some great talent in the room tonight. And so Katina actually said it best earlier. She asked the question to Courtney, what is your one big thing? And that struck me because I think that's a very valuable, important question for all of us to ask. Because if you don't put it out there, there's no way for it to ever come true. So sometimes even just the act of thinking about what that one big thing that you can do, maybe it's inspiration, maybe it's a way you can help others, whatever it is, everybody here has something that they can do to benefit their communities, to help get other people outdoors, and in the process we help ourselves through that work also. So for the rest of the night, we have about 15 minutes left in the evening. I love to split into 5 groups. We have 5 amazing speakers. There's 5 natural groups that are formed here. We have 1, 2, 3. This table, this long table here, can be 3. And then this table in the middle can be 4 and 5. So just split yourselves in half. And we'll have each speaker go to each group, and everybody here is going to think about their one big idea and share it with their new friends. So that's the way we're going to close out this evening tonight.
My birthday is another day this year. I don't even know. I'm just trying to like. Happy birthday! Yay!